Welcome in, everybody, to the first episode of the Buckets and Dingers podcast. This is episode 1. I'm your host, Mason Kern, alongside my co-host, Jake Santo. Jake, how you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling great. I'm excited to do this. Let's get started with our first episode.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. I definitely agree. And obviously, name of the podcast, Buckets and Dingers. We're going to get into some buckets now. Some crazy stuff has gone down in the NBA this week. Not good stuff at that. So, a recent story from Sports Illustrated came out alleging multiple cases of sexual harassment within the Dallas Mavericks organization. Now, Jake, I don't know if you heard, but allegedly team president and CEO Turdema Ussery has been making his employees feel threatened as his reputation as a sexual predator has preceded him throughout the past few years. He's multiple women have come forward. The Me Too movement, obviously a big thing right now, so I feel like this has kind of impacted why so many women have come forward at this point in time. Definitely good for them to come out and get this problem solved. Obviously, I think the culture of Dallas after these allegations, if they are true, because obviously don't want to presume guilt, but I mean, you can't really deny these people's claims. I mean, the culture of the Mavericks is definitely shot after this. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree. The accusations coming out of Dallas are horrendous, and it's a culture. It's been going on for years. The former GM now, who is accused of these actions, absolutely horrific. It starts with Mark Cuban, though. And according to the Sports Illustrated reporting, Mark Cuban had no knowledge of this. He took responsibility for this, but I can't believe he had no knowledge of this. If I'm the president or the owner of this NBA organization, accountability is on me. I would have known this, and I would have tried to get rid of it as soon as possible.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, if you're the team owner and you have so much stake in your organization, I feel like you have to know at least something is going on. And all these employees are quitting on you, and you can't just not suspect that anything is going on. I mean, I really feel like the history of the team is shot. I mean, their 2010-11 championship beat the Heat. I mean, with all this going on, how can anyone be thrilled that they even have that championship in the first place? I mean, we'll see if Dallas can even recover from the upcoming fallout that's sure to happen with Ussery. We'll see what consequences he gets. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is just wrong, and the NBA is more than just basketball, in my opinion.
And a question that lingers: is this everywhere in the NBA, or is it just in Dallas? Are other teams going to have fallouts similar to this with top executives harassing female employees? We'll have to see.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said earlier, the Me Too movement, definitely a big thing right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some more people come forward within different organizations. But more on that later. I know that wasn't the only thing that happened in the NBA this week. Can you tell us a little bit more about some other stories?
A big news out of San Antonio this week. Spurs head coach and Hall of Fame coach Greg Popovich was quoted on saying that he expects his star forward Kawhi Leonard to be surprised if he comes back this season. Kawhi Leonard missed the first 27 games of the regular seasons with a right quad injury. He's the star of that team, and he would be able to carry them into the playoffs. So we're going to have to see if he comes back this season, but coach is not very optimistic right now.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, there was some turmoil within the organization at one point. I know Kawhi kind of wanted to get back out there. They wouldn't let him per se, so we'll have to see if he does decide to opt out. We were talking off air in free agency. But, I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge really has stepped up for the Spurs this season, which is definitely good. He has had an all-star year. But Kawhi, though, I mean, he's a difference maker. He's been in talks for MVP the last 3 seasons. So that's definitely a huge loss for this team who definitely wants to make a playoff push.
I don't think without Kawhi, the Spurs can make a run deep into the Western Conference. They will not make the NBA Finals without him healthy. So this could be a shot in the arm for him going forward.
I mean, when you have teams in the West like Houston, who's definitely surging right now, best record before the All-Star break, and then Golden State, obviously, can never discount them. And it's sad because Kawhi got injured in the series against Golden State last year. I think the Spurs had a good chance with him if he doesn't get hurt. Zaza Pachulia doesn't do that poor closeout, but that's a story for another time. But, I mean, it is sad that Kawhi probably won't come back this season. We're just gonna have to see where it goes from there.
Mason, do Kawhi Leonard, he's had some problems in San Antonio since he signed there with turmoil with head coach Greg Popovich and his playing time. Do you expect him to come back next season?
I mean, I do. I think he's kind of he's a very loyal person. So I think he's the type of player who, even if he does kind of opt out, I don't think this turmoil is going to really affect his relationship with the organization, with Greg Popovich, because Greg Popovich has kind of made him into the player he is. He came out of San Diego State, a raw prospect, and he surged to become one of the best two-way players in the NBA, maybe even in talks for one of the best. So, I mean, it is, like I said earlier, sad to see hopefully he can come back, and I at the end of the day, I do think he'll make his return. Now, like we said, Buckets and Dingers, name of the podcast. Dingers news, baseball, MLB. What's going on, Jake?
Major League Baseball knows there's a continued problem that they're losing fans to faster, higher-paced games. In recent years, Major League Baseball has attempted to speed up the game with different rules and other implementations. But this year, they are doing something new. They are limiting the amount of mound visits by coaches and players. Both players and coaches will be limited to 6 mound visits apiece, with a couple exceptions. But after the 6 mound visits, you would have to change your pitching. Also, in bigger news, there's not going to be a pitch clock this season. They've been implemented in the AA and AAA levels in years past, and there's been rumors that this year would be the first year that Major League Baseball would take up the new rule. But they were able to hold that off for another year. So, Mason, do you expect these new rules to speed up the pace of games?
Well, I mean, it's definitely an experiment for sure. I mean, we talk about the mound visits. They're limiting those now when there was no limit before. So, I mean, the coaches could kind of come out as many times as they wanted. So, I definitely think that'll speed it up. I mean, you take away the pitch clock, though, and I think that definitely has an impact because now pitchers are going to kind of evaluate more in depth, I would say. So, we'll see if the experiment does pay off. Obviously, I mean, games averaging 3 hours last season, it's a long time. So hopefully these rules kind of motivate me a little bit more to watch these games.
Yeah, I feel like as a young person, if you don't like baseball, you're not going to watch baseball. If you do like baseball, you're going to watch baseball. I don't think any of these rules are going to help people come back to the game of baseball. I think other factors of maybe children playing at a younger level and maybe having a love for the game that way. But I honestly think these rules aren't going to do anything much. So, Mason, there's actually been some other news in the free agent market in Major League Baseball. Can you highlight on some of the facts going on right now?
Yeah, well, most recently, the biggest signing, obviously, JD Martinez finally picked a destination. I know there was contention whether he was going to be an Arizona Diamondback again or if he was going to jump ship, go to the Boston Red Sox. He has signed with the Boston Red Sox. It's a reported 5-year, $110 million contract, and it's the way it works. Martinez is going to be paid $25 million in 2018 and 19 before his first opt-out clause opportunity. So he can opt out after the 2019 season. If he does stay, it's going to be $22 million, and then in 2020, before his second opt-out, it's going to be $19 million the last 2 years. So there is going to be opportunity for him to opt out, try to get more money. I mean, it took him a really long time to finally sign with a team this season. He kind of felt that he deserved more money. Stalled Boston's first offer of $100 million. Now it's $110. So JD Martinez, 45 homers, definitely going to help Boston. And then before that, Eric Hosmer signed with the San Diego Padres. So his impact, it's an 8-year contract, fully guaranteed. So I don't know if that was the smartest decision. What would you say about that?
So with the Eric Hosmer deal, I think it was a really poor decision by the San Diego Padres. Maybe in the short term, it's going to be able to help booster their offensive performance. But an 8-year deal, I don't see Eric Hosmer in his 30s currently. In his late 30s, I don't think he's going to have the same production value as he does now. However, with the JD Martinez deal, I think it's a fantastic deal by the Red Sox. They're going to bolster their offense. They were last in home runs in the American League last year, so they're able to compete with the Yankees, who, of course, got the big signing of the offseason and Giancarlo Stanton being traded from the Miami Marlins. So I think JD Martinez, it's a power war right now. It's a race of arms for the Yankees and Red Sox. They're just competing against each other. For the Hosmer deal, I don't see San Diego making a push. I think it's just a deal to maybe get some fans in the seats. And we'll see later on. Maybe something can happen from it. But otherwise, I don't see much of it.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see how all of these deals this offseason turn out. Obviously, Yu Darvish also signing with the Cubs earlier in the year as well. Well, that wraps up episode 1 of Buckets and Dingers podcast with me, your host, Mason Kern, alongside my co-host, Jake Santo. Thanks for tuning in.